Welcome to this session on the key ITTOs for communication planning or planning the communication management. The PMI frameworks provide a structured approach to planning through inputs, tools, and techniques and outputs, which is considered as ITTOs. So, understanding these elements helps to ensure that communication and stakeholder engagement plans are based on data driven decisions and best practices. And to start with the key inputs, tools, and techniques and outputs for planning communication management, the key inputs here including the project charter, the stakeholder register, the stakeholder register including in the which was identified on the initiation phase, the project management plan, including the communication management plan, the project documents, the EEFs, the OPAs. The key tools and techniques used here is the expert judgment, the communication requirement analysis, and communication technology, communication models, the communication method, some of the team skills and interpersonal skills, the data presentation and meetings, and the output would be out of this process is the communication management plan. So to start with the inputs, the first step in planning communication and stakeholder engagement is gathering the right inputs. So the project charter provides a foundational information, while the stakeholder register details the stakeholder expectation in terms of communication. The OPAs, such as the templates, historical data, offer the guidance, and the EEFs ensure the compliance with the company culture and legal regulations. Let's see the common tools and techniques for communication and stakeholder engagement. So, after identifying the inputs, we use various tools and techniques to process the information effectively. Communication methods helps defining the best way to deliver the message. Stakeholder analysis prioritizes the engagement efforts, and expert judgment ensures that the strategies align with the best practices and organizational needs. You have here the communication methods, including the formal, whether it's a meeting or reports, or let's say the type of communication method, maybe it should be an informal, such as emails or chats, and hybrid approaches. And all of these communication methods depend on your stakeholder needs and agreement. So if your stakeholders want formal, let's say, updates or communication on the projects, then you have to follow the formal methods, doing meetings, presentation, reports. In case if they are okay, for example, with emails or phone calls or chats, and then you might follow this informal communication method. Also, you need to do stakeholder analysis when mapping the stakeholder influence and interest to prioritize the communication and engagement strategies. The expert judgment here might help you when leveraging the expertise from senior managers or project sponsors or industry specialists. Now, let's look into the communication methods and planning. So, choosing the right communication method is critical. Here we have the key, let's say, communication methods and planning, including the push communication, the pull communication, the interactive communication. The push communication is useful for broad information sharing. The other hand, pull communication allows stakeholders to access details as needed. Think as of uploading the project progress report on a website or an internal website, and you allow the stakeholders to access that website or that page whenever they need. This is a type of pull communication. Push communication, as I said, that it might involve sending information such emails or memos or reports to the stakeholders. However, the pull communication, we say that it's information retrieval, such as intranet or dashboards or repositories. We have also this type which is called the interactive communication. Interactive communication fosters a real-time collaboration, such as meetings or calls or workshops or presentations. And the choice depends on the stakeholder needs and project complexity. Very important concept here we have to focus on, which is the stakeholder analysis techniques. So stakeholder analysis is a key technique in planning, and the power grid interest or the power interest grid helps classifying the stakeholder based on their level of involvement and influence. So you need to tailor your communication based on the level of involvement and influence by these stakeholders. So in case if you have a high level or a high impact, high interest stakeholders and they are not interactive or they are not communicating, you need to address that issue by approaching these stakeholders and understanding or rectifying the communication needs of these stakeholders to ensure that their involvement and influence in the project remain positive. Also, you have the silence model, which provides a deeper perspective by considering the urgency of the stakeholders, while the stakeholders engagement matrix track the engagement level over the time. And these are the key types that you can use to analyze stakeholder analysis. So we say the power interest grid, the silence model to prioritize the stakeholder by power urgency. You have the stakeholder engagement matrix, which maps the stakeholders from unaware to leading. How is involved in communication or planning missions? How is communication plan and stakeholder engagement plan? So the communication and management plan, it defines what, when, how communication will occur. On the other hand, the stakeholder engagement plan outlines the strategies for stakeholder interaction and involvement. So again, these are the final outputs of the communication and stakeholder, let's say, engagement, or let's say that they are the only outputs for the communication planning, the communication management. They are the communication management plan and the stakeholder engagement plan. And the communication management plan ensures the structure and timely communication, while the stakeholder engagement plan defines the strategies to keep the stakeholder engaged and managed effectively. Now let's have a look at the communication. So all communication plans include objectives, defines how the information flows within the project. Also, it outlines the escalation procedures for addressing communication gaps or conflicts. So the key components that you can expect to see in communication management plan, including the communication objectives, such as the goals and expectation from the project communication, also the information flow, such as who receives what information, when and how. And the last component here is the communication escalation process, which is can be considered as a guidelines for resolving communication challenges or issues. Let's have a look on the common challenges in communication. So common challenges in communication include the misalignment, let's say due unclear expectation, use of the usage of ineffective communication methods, failing to update the plans as per the project evolves. So addressing these challenges requires a regular, audits and stakeholder engagement, feedback loops, and adaptive communication strategies. So the key challenges we say the unclear stakeholder expectation, which leads to misalignment, the ineffective communication methods, causing misunderstanding, also failure to update the communication plan as per the project or as the project needs evolve. Summarize our session, we say that planning communication and stakeholder engagement requires a structured and well-defined, let's say, structure and the usage of effective ITTOs We discussed the inputs like the stakeholder registers, the OPAs, and which sets the foundation, and tools like stakeholder analysis and understanding the type of communication that the stakeholder want to use, whether it's a push, whether it's a formal communication. And the outputs here, we say that the communication management plan here is the key output of this process to ensure an effective project execution.